Continuing off my last videos on Void builds for Slayer's Fang, I wanted to do some Prismatic builds for Slayer's Fang. And first up is what I call the Verity Slayer. It's using either Verity's Brow or Spirit of the Verity from the exotic class item to make your grenades even stronger on Warlock and really juice up Slayer's Fang. Now what this is doing is it is, as you get Void kills, going to increase the damage of your Void grenade, and that will let you get volatile rounds thanks to passive bravery, so that Slayer's Fang can destroy entire rooms, weakening and inflicting volatile. Now this is very similar to the Void build that I put up for Warlocks, but you do get a few things on top of it. You get the excellent Transcendence, you get a class ability that creates Hellion, so you get a fireball shooting around. You also get a much better melee ability, and you get access to different supers. In this case, I'm using Needle Storm, just to get some different damage resistance and some really strong one-off damage. You can see here, whittling this boss down with this, and we still have our super. That sounds good to you? Let's get in the build. I'm Engineer. Just like my previous videos, I want to talk about Slayer's Fang first, but if you've already seen this slide once, don't go away too quick, because there are new things we've learned about Slayer's Fang. Not only does it weaken once you have Nightsworn Sight and can get Repulsor Brace from one of the catalyst traits, there are a couple new things. Void Breaches can trigger Nightsworn Sight, so picking up a Void Breach triggers it without getting a kill, which is very good. You can store those up on the field, they stay for a while, so that's a way to get Nightsworn Sight while you're fighting bosses. Another thing is that if allies trigger Nightsworn Sight with this weapon, it also gives it to you, and it also does a bonus 10% damage towards fallen and scorned enemies, which is pretty cool, and just free damage if you're fighting this faction, so definitely something to think about. All credit to the Destiny Data Compendium. You can see the even larger snip here from it, and just for your reference, I've shown what I have crafted on it right now over to the right, so you can use that. But now, as for other weapons, really just use a Void Heavy. We're going all in on volatile rounds and Void weapons, so you just want to match your Heavy up to that. We're going to mostly use the special. You might think about a Strand Primary, because we'll actually get unraveling rounds occasionally, but you won't need them a lot, because Arcane Needle will cover that. Now, let's talk about the exotic. You have two options here. You can either take Verity's Brow, which is an exotic from the base game, or you can use the exotic class item, Solipsism. Now, I really recommend this if you have the combo of Spirit of Verity and Spirit of Inmost Light, because this will give you the increased grenade damage and it will give you increased ability regen. Now why would you use this over to Verity's Brow? Because it increases your grenade and your melee regen rate and your class ability rate, so all your abilities can be spammed more. But Verity's Brow is extremely good still. What does Verity's Brow do? As you get matching weapon kills, you will build up stacks, and as you get those stacks, your grenade damage increases up to an additional plus 100% damage. And then for each stack, you get another 50% base grenade regen rate, which will cap out at 250%. But the coolest part is when you throw your grenade and you have any amount of death throws active, it gives your allies within 20 meters 10 times grenade regen speed. That's 1000% grenade regen speed, which is fantastic for 5 seconds. So that is huge team support. If you're playing alone, Inmost Verity is going to be a much better combo, but in teams, Verity's Brow is going to be very strong and will still cover 90% of the gameplay loop. So if you haven't managed to get really lucky with that exotic class item perk, Verity's Brow is going to be fantastic. Now, I mentioned Verity's Brow. You can get it from anywhere. It's a base game exotic. Don't worry about it. Solipsism is obviously a little bit more complicated. You need to have the final shape, beat the campaign, complete dual destiny, then get from either the Pale Heart or Zer. If you are focusing Verity's Brow, your stat priorities are resilience, discipline, recovery, strength, and intellect. Pretty standard setup. Moving over to the aspects and abilities, we are obviously going to take Feed the Void. It gives us enhanced devour, gives us grenade energy back, and heals us every time we get a kill after we activate it by getting an ability kill, which is pretty straightforward and how we kick off our whole gameplay loop. For a second aspect, I generally recommend Hellion. This works best for the ability spam loop with Inmost Light. You also could take Lightning Surge. It's very good for mobility, it gives damage resistance while you're doing it, and it does great damage and adds Jolt. But Hellion will just generally work with your gameplay loop better because it doesn't take much out of what you're doing. It doesn't take away from your shotgunning style, so that's kind of why I've leaned towards that. Now, the one thing to note is you will be pretty heavy on light damage, so you need to balance that out with some darkness. So think about that. On your super, I recommend Needle Storm because you can get access to Woven Mail from Fragments, and it will help you build up that Transcendence gauge. You get it pretty quick just with all the killing you're doing and grenade kills and all that. So you can use that and it should fill up most of the darkness gauge, and then you just keep looping that over and over. Your grenade has to be Vortex Grenade. For Verity, it has to match the element of your weapon, and because we're using Slayer's Fang, the only grenade we have access to is Vortex Grenade. Just a very good grenade, but it has a very long cooldown. 50% flat gain factor, but between either of our exotic choices, we should have very good grenade regen to cover for that. Our melee should be Arcane Needle. It is great, gets 3 charges, inflicts unravel, very versatile. And if you use Lightning Surge, it gives you 3 charges for that, so very good. On our class ability, it's pretty flexible, but Phoenix Dive has the shortest cooldown, so that makes the most sense for Hellion. Moving over to Fragments, we want to take Faceted Bravery to get volatile rounds when we get a grenade kill. Really straightforward, that helps make Slayer's Fang an AoE monster. You will also get unraveling rounds if you get a melee kill, so that's helpful. One thing that this build does have over the Void build is you get Facet of Dawn for Radiant. So on top of your weaken, you get plus 25% weapon damage. Now this is only for 5 seconds, but with Inmost Light, you can usually spam that pretty good. You just have to kind of time it out and then just make sure you unload the damage pretty quickly in that 5-second window. We're gonna take Faceted Protection. We're gonna be up close, so extra damage resistance is fantastic. And then we're going to take Faceted Purpose. This is the fragment that will give us Woven Mail if we have a Strand Super. It can also give you Overshield if you have Nova Bomb, which is another good option. You will get Overshield from Slayer's Fang though, so a little bit redundant there, but continually topping that off is not a bad idea. For the last fragment, I'm going to take Faceted Awakening. That gives us access to Void Breaches, which is really good to trigger that Nightsworn Sight. We do have some artifact perks that could cover this for now, but I like to make sure the build's planned well for the future. And our artifact perks are going away pretty soon. Some honorable mentions, Facet of Balance is really good for ability spam. We'll be doing a lot of different damage, but we're pretty heavy on the light side, so you're really just going to get more melee energy back from this. Faceted Courage is also pretty good as we inflict unravel from our Arcane Needle. It will make our light abilities do 10% increased damage, but this is pretty minor generally in this build, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Moving over to mods and armor stats, you will see pretty much the exact same mod setup that I've had for every build lately. We are going to be focused very heavily on this Void weapon. So you want Void Siphon. I'm using a Void Targeting on the head just because I don't have other mods that I'd rather use there. We're going to use Void Surges, so have those on the legs, but we also need Time Dilation to keep those up. Now to solve for the ammo economy on Slayer's Fang, which is its weakest point, we're going to need Special Ammo Finisher. And to balance Special Ammo Finisher and these Void Weapon Surges, we need stacks on the legs so that every orb will give us 2 armor charges, and then we're going to need charged up on the chest so we can get up to 4 armor charges. The Special Finisher will use up 3, and then we'll still be down to 1, and we can easily get back to 4 or 3 pretty quickly. One thing to note, I've seen so many builds with this weapon that recommend Special Ammo Finders, and this is a bad idea. Special Ammo Finders do not progress very quickly when you use Special Ammo weapons. They want you to use other weapon types. So it's going to take around 50 kills to get a brick, and it doesn't even return a full mag unless you use 3 copies of it. On top of that, because you're doing so many kills with volatile and grenades, none of those count. It's only weapon kills that count. So it's going to progress extremely slow with how we've set this up with volatile rounds. So don't use Special Ammo Finder. You want to use Special Ammo Finisher to get your ammo. Now, the last thing in this build is we want to make orbs and get our super back. So we're going to use Ashes to Assets, so those grenade kills will get us super. And then because I have Vortex Grenade, which lasts over time, we want to use triple firepower. So that Vortex Grenade can make an orb every 1 second. Now last but not least, I have Powerful Attraction on the class item, but you could slip in a Reaper here too. We will use our class ability pretty frequently thanks to Hellion, so that's an option. As for stats, as I mentioned before, max out Resilience, max out Discipline, get as much strength as you can, get as much recovery as you can, but Devour will cover most of this, and then just get 30 in intellect. Very briefly on artifact perks, these are going to be invalid after February 4th, which is just over 3 weeks away. Take the void perks as much as you can. These will make lots of void breaches. You collect them, things happen. Don't really have to worry about it too much because once again, it's very short. There are 3 here that are highlighted in green, and those will give you just a lot of armor charges. That gives you armor charge as you kill enemies while surrounded. Curative Orbs makes orbs when you break a shield. Finder's Keepers will give you armor charge on special heavy ammo pickup, which we do a lot. So it just continually keeps you charged up. So you can keep using those surges and keep using that finisher whenever you need to. Now, just want to show you another gameplay clip. This is once again the beginning of Tomb of Elders. Really, it's Contest of Elders. But doing this solo, a lot of enemies. It's generally pretty hectic, and there's very little good cover from enemies. So that's how I've been testing builds a little bit. More chaotic situations to see if they actually perform. As you can see, throw a grenade whenever we got it. It's pretty strong. It's going to continually get buffed. Unfortunately, with how many buffs we have, I can never see how strong it's been buffed. How many stacks of death throws we have. That is something I wish they would still fix, but we persevere. Still pretty simple though. Get grenade kills, then get your weapon kills. Just keep that loop going. Now remember, we do need to do that special finisher whenever possible to keep our ammo up, because we will chew through it so fast. If you've seen some of my other videos with Spirit of Inmost Light or Heart of Inmost Light, remember the main thing is that the class ability regen is the slowest part on this, so make sure you're taking advantage of that and using it when it makes most sense, shortly after a melee or grenade ability, so you stack up that regen even higher. See, the boss is out. We're getting a lot of fire right now, but we're pretty survivable thanks to void overshields. And then whenever we pick up one of those orbs, we get woven mail for 5 seconds, which is 40% damage resistance, which is just great. And we also have faster protection, which is 15%. And then in a pinch, if we get transcendence, that's another 25% damage resistance. So actually that might be 20%. I'll double check that. You can see I pulled out my primary here. I'm just trying to whittle down some enemies so I can get some finishers. Running just a little bit low and just don't want to have to worry about ammo anymore. Damage over time grenades are great for just chipping down bosses. Needle Storm is a really solid ad clear and boss damage super. And we finally got our Transcendence back. Needle Storm does fill up that darkness side of the Transcendence gauge really quickly. So it does good damage and just hits a lot of things. You can see the boss is down. Easy. And we just kind of clean up. So that's pretty much it for the build. Let me just summarize that gameplay loop. Void weapon kills boost your grenade damage. Grenade kills give you volatile rounds. Just keep going back and forth between those. Mix in Arcane Needle to put unravel into crowds or stronger enemies. That'll give you a little bit of darkness gauge. Mix in your class ability for Hellion and more Inmost Light procs whenever you can. And then just use your super on crowds to fill that darkness gauge. And that's really it. You can use your heavy as you need to. I didn't bring out heavy at all, and that's really all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward. I hope you enjoyed the build. I should be doing more prismatic builds for Hunter and Titan just to round it out. And then, as I've said in recent videos, I hope we start hearing about heresies soon so we can start planning for that. Start coming up with good new build ideas and get some freshness in the sandbox. I appreciate all the support on the channel so far. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely do that. It's the easiest way to see my videos faster and also helps me out. I have a Discord server if you want to come chat about builds. I usually preview what I'm working on and ask people directly for their feedback or what they want to see. So it's pretty great. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I love talking about the builds or other ideas. I got a different idea for a build just this morning from comments, so that was really great. And with that, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for all the support. Have a good one.